Okay, so today I'm introducing source medicine.
今天我给大家介绍的是原医疗。
It's a new system of medicine. I think that's the only way I can present it. It comes from the old traditions, but it's evolved into something completely new.
今天这个原医疗呢，其实它这个资源共振的疗法是来源于一个非常传统的医疗，但是
And I call it a vitalizing system of medicine because it doesn't attack anything, it vitalizes the inner systems of the body and mind to work better.
我将之称之为能够改善人生命力的一种医疗方式，因为它并不会造成一些副作用。
So it's not to do with fighting symptoms or diseases.
所以其实并不是一种抗击身体外在症状的疗法。
So today I'm going to present results for hundreds of cases, and we've treated hundreds of thousands of people successfully.
今天我会给大家简要的介绍一下我们在非洲治愈的几十万病人，还有几百个病例。
Mainly in Africa.
主要是在非洲。
It's more complex to apply this system in the West, but I will talk about that as well.
在西方国家的情况会更加复杂一些，不过稍后我会进一步做介绍。
So, and the unique thing about this system is we can deliver it through liquids, pills, or audio sounds.
最关键一点是我们给病人开的药物是一种药片、液体或者是声音。
And if you understand, audio sounds can be sent via the internet, so it's a pharmacy you can deliver instantly worldwide for no cost.
声音其实是可以上传到网络的，所以原医疗其实可以在全世界传播开来。
So I want to take you now to Ethiopia, where I ended up in 2001. I went to Ethiopia at that time. There were no antiretroviral drugs getting to Africa, and maybe for a decade after that. And people were dying by the millions across Africa with AIDS spread by heterosexual sexual contact.
我在2001年的时候去了埃塞俄比亚，当时非洲这个国家还没有抗逆爪毒病毒的药物，在后面很长一段时间里，有无数的病人因为患了艾滋病而死亡。
So this is one of my first patients, and it was difficult to get patients at the time because there was a stigma about admitting you had HIV, but every patient I took had HIV, and oops.
但是在大屏幕上看到的是我的第一位病人，他是患有艾滋病的。那个时候其实要找到病人还挺难的，因为大家对于艾滋病还是有一定的偏见。
So she's about 25 years old, and she's got AIDS, and the baby's about a year and a half old, and it's missing all its milestones, and it's dying of AIDS.
但是这个病人25岁，他的小孩只有1岁半。都患有了艾滋病，这个小孩因为艾滋病的症状，当时几乎都活不下去了。
And her husband's already died of AIDS. And she says that what she's doing is she's staying alive until the baby dies, and then she's going to commit suicide because she doesn't want to die the death of her husband.
当时她的丈夫已经因为艾滋病而死亡，她当时跟我说。他就等哪一天他的孩子去世了，他就会自杀。
And you could multiply variations of this story by millions across Africa at the time.
那个时候，非洲这样的案例比比皆是。
So, so my problem was, as a homeopath, I was trying to deal with this problem, and I haven't got a clue what to do. But I tried homeopathy, and I sort of saw that homeopathy might work a bit. But when I examined homeopathic medicine, I found there was a big hole in it. Over to you.
对于我来说的一个问题是，我希望能够通过顺势疗法来治疗这些病人，然后我就开始研究顺势疗法当中用于顺势疗法的一些药物，发现其中有个很大的漏洞。
Although in theory, homeopathy had a way of finding a remedy for any epidemic disease, in practice, in the whole 250 years of its history, no one had found a single remedy for a single disease.
我发现顺势疗法当中的一些药物，它确实有能够治疗一些疾病的效果，但问题是在当时过去的250多年当中，并没有针对某一种疾病的一种针对性的药物开发出来。
Yet they had a way of dealing with it which was a compromise, which was okay, but too complex.
所以这其实是一个不算非常有效的方法。
Okay. So I started treating people. No, I'm going back again. So I decided there was no way that I could treat these people with classical homeopathy or any form of homeopathy. It just didn't compute for me. So I thought about it for months, and then I decided on a completely new approach, which was something I'd never done before.
我当时想了几个月，我觉得顺势疗法当中的传统的治疗方法是无法帮助我非常有效的治疗这些病人的，所以我后来采取了一个新的方法。
And I should say that you explain AIDS. AIDS in Africa at this time, it lasted. You had 10 years of AIDS when you didn't know you had it.
非洲的艾滋病病人，他们可能患了艾滋病10年都不知道自己患病。
You had the virus, but you have no symptoms.
身体已经感染到了病毒，但是并没有任何的表征体现。
Then in the 11th year approximately, your health descended rapidly to zero.
但是疾病突然爆发了之后，身体状况就会大幅下降。
And by the time that people were coming to me, they were within 3 to 6 months of death.
那些病人找到我的时候，其实他们可能只剩下3-4个月可活了。
If they were carried in, they would maybe live a month. And if they could walk in, they could live 3 or 4 months.
如果说早一点的话，他们可能能够活得更久一点。
And I was the only man in town, so to speak, in a country the size of France, who had any idea what to do.
但是当时因为那个镇上面只有我一个能够治病的人，所以说实话真的不知道该如何是好。
And this is Ethiopia at the time. There's 70 languages, 240 dialects, and 3 roads.
埃塞俄比亚这个国家这个地方有各种各样不同的地方方言，所以交流起来也很困难。
And the roads weren't very good.
而且这个国家的道路建设也非常糟糕。
So I started treating people, and at the start of treatment, I used a Konoski score, and this is a monitoring of 97 cases. And I used a Konoski score, which is a way of evaluating health mathematically, so down here, when I started, their level of health was 45%, which is well on the way to death, and they've only got 3 months to live or something at that time.
我在2002年的时候，在埃塞俄比亚做了一个临床的调研，当时是有97个病人接受这个调研。我根据的是一个卡氏的评分标准来评估这些病人的身体状况。在刚开始的时候，他们的身体状况只有45%，只剩下3-4个月可活了。
And at the speed at which they were dying, this would have gone down to here somewhere in 8 weeks.
如果继续按照他们的情况发展下去的话，在8个星期之内，他们的身体状况就会下降到20%。
But with the resonance I made for them, instead of that, after 8 weeks, they were speeding up towards good health again.
但是经过了原共振疗法之后，在8个星期之内，他们的身体状况就上涨到了70%以上。
And they had a whole pile of symptoms.
当时他们有一系列的症状。
They would be unable to eat. They would have funguses all down their throat. They'd have herpes all over their heads. They had tremendous weakness.
他们当时身体有一系列的症状，比如说各种各样的真菌啊，不能吃饭啊等等。
And they couldn't eat, and they had lost 20 kilos in weight often.
就是因为这一系列的症状，体重下降了20公斤。
And the shortest sign of recovery was the gain of weight.
就在经过了治疗之后，他们的体重迅速就上来了。
They would put on weight rapidly, and all their symptoms would disappear.
不仅体重上升得非常快，而且那些症状也都消失了。
Oops. Okay, so we repeated this experiment. This has been used now, this approach, for hundreds of thousands of cases, and it's almost 100% successful.
我们后来在其他的地方也运用了这样的疗法，治愈了几十万个病人，可以说是100%有效的。
The most common problem of recovery was simply that they didn't have any food, because they suddenly developed an enormous appetite and they had no money.
但最大的一个或者说最普遍的一个问题就是，他们从这些症状 恢复了之后，胃口变得非常好，但是没有食物可吃。
I solved this problem because it cost about $1 per patient to feed them for 2 weeks, and then they would get better.
所以我就自费掏腰包给这些病人，大概2个星期，每个病人是花掉$1左右，帮助他们能够获得足够的食物。
I have to say this was very hard for me to believe. It took me 2 years to believe this worked.
说实话，我刚开始也不太相信这种方法能够有效，花了2年的时间。
In spite of the evidence. So I now want to move on to malaria.
下面再来说说疟疾。
So obviously, if I could make a remedy that worked for HIV/AIDS, then I could make something that worked for malaria.
当时我就想说，如果说我能够创造出一些原共振的资源，可以治疗艾滋病的话，那么疟疾应该也是 OK 的。
And malaria is the biggest killer in Africa.
疟疾在非洲是一个非常严重的致死疾病。
So, just an example, we took a boarding school in Africa with 600 children, and about 140 of them at any one time had malaria.
当时我们在非洲一个国家选了一个住宿学校，这个学校里有600个学生，其中140名都患有疟疾。
So we taught the teachers how to prescribe for malaria, and they treated all the students who were sick, and they got better.
所以我们就教当地这个学校里面的老师如何治疗疟疾。他们在给比较年长的孩子进行了治疗之后，那些孩子情况大有好转。
And then they treated the whole school routinely once a week and then once a month for a year.
然后他们把这个治疗的方法普及到整个学校，每个星期、每个月1次，一直持续了1年。
Then after 1 year, there was no malaria at all, and after they stopped the treatment program, they still didn't have any malaria. So it was preventative as well as curative.
所以经过了1年之后，整个学校都没有再发生疟疾，而且即便是治疗停止之后，也没有再复发。所以说，这个疗法不仅可以治愈，还可以预防。
Again, this experience has been repeated hundreds of thousands of times, and it's very reliable. It's much more reliable than any other treatment for malaria that I've ever come across.
这个方法我们后来在其他的地方也重复了几百次，是非常可靠的。在我看来，是比其他治疗疟疾的方法更可靠的一种疗法。
And it's cost virtually nothing. Okay, so, this has gone wrong. Okay, I'm going back. There was another example, and that we trained a man to treat malaria, and he ran a little clinic near a hospital.
之前我们教了一个人，之前我们给一个人教授如何通过这种疗法来治疗疟疾。他在一所医院旁边开了一个诊所。
And after 3 months, the local hospital called him in and said, "You can't look at our books. We've got no patients now because you're curing everybody, and they don't come to us."
后来当地的这个医院就把他叫去谈话，说：“你看，我们在过去的3个月当中没有任何的疟疾病人，因为你把他们都治好了。”
And he said, "You can't keep doing this because we rely on the patients for our income. That's how we run the hospital."
你不能在这里开诊所了，如果我们没有病人的话，这个医院就开不下去了。
So we did a compromise. We taught the hospital how to treat malaria, and we got the man to go somewhere else.
所以后来我们就达成了一定的妥协，教了这个医院如何用我们的方法来治疗疟疾，并让之前那一位行医者到其他地方开了一家诊所。
Somehow I've put these files out of order, so I'm missing that out. So I now want to move on to the treatment of trauma.
下面再给大家介绍一下如何用原共振疗法来治疗创伤。
I went to Rwanda to treat AIDS in the genocide of Rwanda, they murdered and raped and did all sorts of things, and the people who were raped usually got HIV/AIDS from it.
我之前在卢旺达也治疗了一些的病人，当时卢旺达大屠杀之后，有许多人因为在卢旺达大屠杀当中，被谋杀或者被强奸，所以说他们就患上了艾滋病。
But the reality was that 90% of one tribe was killed, so that in fact everybody left alive in that tribe was deeply in trauma.
在一个种族当中，因为在卢旺达 种族大屠杀当中有90%的人都被杀害了，所以说最后能够有幸存活下来的人，他们的心灵创伤都是非常严重的。
So a typical symptom of trauma, of post what I call genocidal trauma, is flashbacks. This is the #1 symptom of any post-traumatic stress disorder that I've come across.
我认为在 PTSD 创伤后精神紧张性精神障碍这种疾病当中，你当时记忆不断的浮现在脑海里，是一个最常见也最严重的现象。
Every time you think for 10.5 years, your mind is flashing back to the time when you were nearly killed.
在过去的10多年当中，这些人们每天脑海当中都会浮现自己几乎要被谋杀或者说被强奸的情景。
So you want to decide what to cook for a meal, and you get the flashback.
你即便是在做饭的时候也会想到。
So this was the #1 symptom.
所以这个是最常见的一种病
And
状。
they insisted on me treating 30 people simultaneously, so I did.
当时我是同时治疗了70位病人。
So immediately after I gave them the resonance, things started to happen within the first 10 minutes to half an hour.
我在给他们进行了原共振治疗之后，在10分钟之内，他们的症状就有所改善。
They would have abreactions, that is, they were acting out as if they were just being killed.
他们的症状包括过度的情绪宣泄，
Or they started hysterically giggling as a group in a corner.
或者是疯狂的癫笑。
Another group went to sleep on the floor, they never did that.
还有一个是失眠发作，就是突然睡着，
Etc. All the signs of recovery.
等等等等。
And next day, they couldn't even evoke the overwhelming flashbacks. Even if they tried to make them come, they couldn't make them come. They'd become a distant memory.
在经过治疗的第2天之后，这些回忆他们就再也想不起来了，已经成为了非常遥远的记忆。
And I don't think there's any other way on the planet of doing that than this resonance, but I might be wrong.
我不确定我到底应该如何解释这样的现象。
So, and I would like to say that trauma, psychological trauma, is the root of a lot of mental and physical ill health.
在我看来，心灵创伤其实是大部分心灵或者是身体疾病的根源。
So here's another example. On the websites, which I will give you, on the websites I'll give you the information for. There's lots of videos you can watch.
我稍后会给大家一个网站，大家可以看到相关的很多视频。
So this is a man we trained, and he went to treat some rebel soldiers in the jungle. In the Congo.
大家在大屏幕上看到这位男士是我们之前培训的一位医师，他去了刚果共和国的一个丛林当中治疗反政府武装士兵。
And this was a dangerous occupation, but anyway, he treated 160 soldiers.
这是一个非常危险的工作，但是他在丛林当中治疗了100多位病人。
And then a few months later, he's walking past a field in another part of the country, and two men called to him, "Hello, doctor," and he said to them, "Where did I see you before?" And they said, "You met us in the jungle."
在几个月之后，他在这个国家另外一个地方的街上碰到2个人，那2个人跟他打招呼，后来才知道，原来这2个人是在丛林当中治疗的反政府武装士兵。
And he said, "Well, why are you here?" And they said, "Well, the fighting in our heads stopped, so we made an excuse and went home to our families because we didn't need to fight anymore."
医生就问他们为什么会在这里，这几个病人说，经过你的治疗之后，我们的病已经好了，我们内心不会再有任何的斗争，所以就离开了丛林，回到了家庭当中，过上了正常的生活。
So I want to go back to schools again. I'm switching now again from trauma. Sorry, we've repeated the trauma experience in 5,000 cases in one refugee camp, in many other places.
我们用这样的疗法治疗了许多有心灵创伤的病人。
Again, it's a very reliable remedy. Okay, so
我需要再次强调的是，这确实一个非常可靠的治疗方法。
what I realised, well, sometime later I was running a clinic in Africa, in another place, And I realized that the children couldn't get to school a lot of the time because they were sick.
后来我在非洲一个地方开诊所的时候，我发现当地的很多孩子根本没有办法上学，因为他们一般身体都有病。
And in just treating them for malaria, as I showed before, and they got better results because they could get to school.
后来我就治疗了他们的疟疾，疟疾治好了之后，他们回到学校，成绩都非常好。
So I created a new way of delivering the remedies.
后来我就开发了一种新的疗法。
Well, I started using sound in the classrooms.
我在教室里面给他们放声音。
I used a loudspeaker, and the loudspeaker was played every morning in the start of the class.
我在教室里面放了一个扩音器，每天早上都会给这些孩子放3段音频。
And the first sound, 1 minute long, was to treat the infectious diseases, to prevent and treat any infectious diseases.
第一段音频长1分钟，是治疗传染性疾病。
You know, leprosy, malaria, TB, any of those that were, and there are many others.
比如说疟疾啊、肺结核啊等等。
The second one was to treat trauma, any type of trauma, psychological and physical trauma.
第二段是用于治疗创伤的，包括生理和心理创伤。
And the third one was to enhance learning abilities.
第3段则是帮助他们提升学习能力、
concentration and such like.
注意力等等。
So I tried this out rather quickly in the school when I was there, and I saw immediately the headmistress was telling me, "This is working."
我当时在这个学校里面做了实验，或者说给他们进行治疗之后，这些学生的情况非常快的就好转了。
So the children were listening first thing in the morning for 1 minute.
他们每天早上
three minutes.
他们每天早上都会听这3段视频，每一段1分钟。
And so the results.
最后的结果是
I don't know if you can see this, but in schools in Africa, the cane is a normal tool for discipline.
在非洲的学校里面，老师经常会用教鞭来管教学生。
And in all the 20 or 30 schools where we've had reports, they stopped using the cane spontaneously.
我们在20个、30个学校里面推行了员工治疗法之后，这些老师就不再用教鞭了。
And if you think about the soldiers and the fighting in their heads, the kids also had fighting in their heads. You see, but at a much lower level, and it was inherited from their parents and grandparents.
大家回想一下，刚才在丛林里面的那些反政府的武装士兵，他们之所以一直在争斗，是因为他们内心当中有没有争斗？其实这些孩子也一样，他们内心当中的斗争是从父母那里继承而来的。
So, we averaged over a number of about 20 schools. The performance in the schools improved by 26% by state examination, with state examinations in 1 year.
在经过这些疗法之后，1年之内，这些学校里面孩子的学生在国家级别的考试当中的成绩就上升了26%。
And also in each class there were 3 to 5 children with extraordinarily high scores.
每个班上都会有3到5个学生，他们的成绩非常好。
Something they hadn't seen before.
这是以前从未发生过的。
And the best story is, in a school that performed really badly, with hardly any school children going to secondary school, moved to become the second best school in the whole of Kenya.
有一所学校之前的孩子的学习成绩非常差，这些孩子很可能连初中都上不了。但是经过了治疗之后，这个学校就成为了肯尼亚第2所优秀的学校。
So I'm moving on now.
下面说下面一个话题。
I want to talk briefly about chronic diseases.
来说一下慢性疾病。
So we wrote a paper recently this year about treating sickle cell disease.
我们最近写了一篇关于用原共振疗法来治疗镰状细胞的论文，镰状细胞病的论文。
I'll briefly explain sickle cell disease.
我下面来简单介绍一下这种病。
Basically, the cells are the shape of sickles, and they don't work very well.
你的血液里面的这种细胞，它变成了镰状，所以功能并不能够非常有效的发挥作用。
So you have chronic anemia and chronic weakness.
所以说，患有这种镰状细胞病的病人会长期的贫血，身体状况非常弱。
and the cells group together and block the arteries routinely and cause enormous pain crises.
这些细胞会堵在血管当中，造成身体极度疼痛。
And the conventional treatment is painkillers and blood transfusions.
传统治疗镰状细胞疾病的方法其实就是让患者服用止痛药，并且进行血液的传输。
So if you have a rare blood type in Africa, there's no chance of surviving.
所以，如果在非洲一个患有镰状细胞病的病人，他的血型非常稀有的话，想要治愈这种病是几乎不可能的。
So the normal life expectancy if you've got sickle cell disease in Africa is about 20 years.
所以，如果在非洲患上了镰状细胞病，它的生存时间可能就只有20多年。
And if you're in the West, it's more like 60 years.
在西方国家是60年。
But your life is permanently handicapped.
但是你整个生活的过程当中，就根本无法正常的，根本无法正常生活。
This is a boy we call Mighty Ray, and he had sickle cell disease, and they treated him 2 years ago, or more than 2 years ago, and they treated him with malaria resonance and sickle cell resonance, and in consequence, instead of having crises every 2 weeks, he's had 2 crises in 2 years.
大家在大屏幕上看到这个小孩叫做 Mighty Ray， 他既患有镰状细胞疾病，也有疟疾。本来在患病的时候，他的病症发作可能是2个星期或者是1个月一次，但是2个年之前，他们开始用远共振疗法来治疗他的疟疾跟镰状细胞疾病。在过去2年当中，他的疾病只发过2次。
And this experience has been repeated across lots of different countries of Africa, and by different physicians, and with the same sort of results.
我们在非洲的其他的国家也治疗了很多这样的案例，结果都非常好。
So this is the results of treating 34 children, ages from 4 months to 18 years, after a few weeks of treatment.
大家在大屏幕上看到这个表格，是我们的一个案例汇总，有34个孩子，他们的年龄从4个月到18岁不等。
Basically, virtually all their symptoms were improved between 90 and 100%.
基本上所有的症状都改善了超过90%以上。
And their hemoglobin doubled.
甚至有一些症状改善的更为。
As a consequence, they're symptom-free. They're able to function perfectly well.
这些症状消失之后，他们的生活就趋于正常。
I want another example of chronic disease. I just want to give you one example of thousands I could give you.
其实我可以给大家举出几千个例子，但是在这里想给大家再举其中一个。
About alcoholism, I think you have some in this country.
大家在大屏幕上看到的这个是我目前是手上有一个病人，他的酗酒情况非常严重。
So this is one of our practitioners reported this case. She's been working with an alcoholic, and the woman had been an alcoholic for many years.
这位女士她的酗酒问题已经有好几年了。
So she gave her the audio resonance for alcoholism.
那位医生就给这个病人制作了一段音频，是专门治疗酗酒的。
And she's not drunk since.
自从接受了治疗之后，他就再也没有喝过酒。
She listened once and not drunk ever again.
就只听了1次，就再也没有喝过酒了。
In my understanding, you can't do that normally.
一般来说，可能这种情况不太会经常发生。
So I want to now make a precaution here. Sometimes we get these amazing results. This is a typical amazing result. And it doesn't always work like that.
但是在这里我也要说明的是，有时候可能个别的案例情况非常好，但并不是总是这样。
And in fact, it usually doesn't work like that.
而且确实有时候这种疗法的结果并没有特别好。
But in the beginning, we saw these amazing results in chronic diseases in the West when we started working in the West.
我们刚开始在西方使用这种疗法治疗慢性疾病的时候，觉得效果非常好。
And we saw, for example, one classic case was of Parkinson's, and the man was they'd been treated for a year and a half by all sorts of people, and he was just getting worse. And he was micro movement, micro face, micro talking, micro everything.
再给大家举一个例子，之前我们在一个西方国家治疗的一位患有帕金森综合症的人，他之前是接受了其他方法的治疗，长达1年半的时间，但是情况一直恶化。
And then 3 months later, he walked in completely better.
但是在经过我们的治疗之后，3个月之后，情况就大有改善了。
And we thought, oh, that's amazing. But it didn't last. It only lasted a year.
当时我们觉得这个结果太好了，可是问题是情况好的情况只持续了大概1年的时间。
But stupidly, we wrote a book about it, and really we shot ourselves in the foot.
当时就因为这个事情，我们自己写了一本书，但说实话，确实是有点搬起石头砸自己的脚。
It was premature.
因为还不是很成熟。
Out of the excitement, we wrote a book, and it was premature.
确实不是很成熟。
And it sets us back maybe 5 years, because people really believed what we were saying, and then it didn't work out.
因为这本书写出来之后，大家有些人都信了，但是最后他们在进行这种疗法的过程当中，结果又不是非常的好，所以确实是好像让我们倒退了5年时间。
So when we started another piece of research to find out how to use these resonances in chronic diseases.
最后我们就进行另外一项研究，更加深入的来调查为什么人会患上慢性疾病。
If I summarize it in one sentence, I'm saying that personal dysfunctions and diseases are the reinvention of unresolved and buried family history.
如果用一句话来简要的总结的话，在我看来，一个人他的慢性疾病其实是来源于整个家族一些过去未解决的问题，而这些问题会通过人身体的功能障碍或者疾病表现出来。
Everything that happens from conception onwards is just a repeat of history.
从一个人从受精卵，变成后来的人，这整个过程当中，这一系列的当中发生的事情都会成为致病因素。
The causes of diseases we concluded are toxins, trauma, and infections in the history of the family.
在我看来，毒素、创伤还有传染病是一些历史根源。
And we created a new system for using these resonances with chronic diseases.
我们后来就开发了一套新的体系来形容或者说治疗慢性疾病，这个体系叫做 TIPPS。
Yeah, thank you. So it's the family. That's just a family history. I'm repeating myself now. It's a family history of toxins, infectious diseases, psychological trauma, and physical trauma.
可能在你的整个家族历史当中，你的家人或者祖辈都会有这样的一些问题，比如说身体的毒素啊、传染病啊、心理创伤、物理创伤。
So, for example, in this room, I'm sure there's people suffering from the long-term effects of syphilis, gonorrhea, TB, malaria, and all sorts of diseases. It's just normal.
我相信，可能在座的各位，你们的家族成员或者说祖先都会患过一些病症，比如说疟疾、肺结核等等。
Okay, we're on a different slideshow than I thought. But anyway, so there's a bit of research that's been done in what's called longitudinal studies of diseases.
我们之前有一项研究是专门研究这种慢性疾病的来源的。
And in one study of 17,500 cases, they found that life expectancy is decreased by half. Is decreased by the number of adverse childhood experiences you have.
有一项研究是调查了19500名受试者，并且发现你的生命，你能够活多少年，跟会因为你在童年时期经历的事情而下降50%。
So if your mother's an alcoholic, that's what's called an adverse childhood experience.
如果说你母亲酗酒非常严重的话，这其实也会造成你儿童时期。
And if you get 4 or 5 adverse childhood experiences, your life expectancy drops from 80 years to 40 years.
如果说你在童年时期会经历这样类似事情有4到5种的话，那么你的寿命可能会从80岁下降到40岁。
So now I want to finish on how you make source resonances.
我演讲的最后一部分就是我们到底应该如何制作这种原共振的疗法。
Most difficult bit.
这是最难解释的。
And so there's a source. You can call it prana, you can call it chi, you can call it tao, you can call it what you like, but there's a source of this universe.
这是一个资源，是一种来自于宇宙的源泉。你可以称之为气，可以称之为道。
That is the core of everything.
它是一切的核心。
So what have I got here? So what I did was what I do to make a source resonance is I'll make a request to source.
其实我做的就是我们去祈求生命的源泉，或者说道。
And I request what I want.
我会向他请求我所需要的东西。
I request a resonance in a bottle.
然后再把这个能源放到一瓶水。
Or an MP3 file.
或者是一段 MP3 的音频当中。
And something specific to the disease I'm making the request for.
而且我在祈求或者是请求的时候，会明确的说明治疗的疾病是什么。
I call it a sacred contract.
我称之为非常神圣的交换。
The deal is, I will deliver the process on Earth if you give me the information.
我向这个能源祈求的是，如果说你能给我足够的信息或者是能量的话，我将会将之普及在世界上。
Since I don't understand the source and it's unknowable and unfathomable and the creative force of the universe, I don't have to worry about that side. It knows what it's doing.
我并不能够非常清楚的理解或者说解释它到底是从什么样的来源，但是我知道该怎么做。
So I can't explain the process other than what I've just said.
说实话，我真的不知道应该再用其他什么样的语言来解释这个过程了。
It's effectively a trade secret, not because I want it to be a trade secret, but because I can't tell anybody because I don't know how to.
说实话，这是一个秘密，并不是因为我不愿意在这里分享给大家，是因为真的非常难以解释清楚。
I can manage to pass it on by apprenticeship. I've discovered that.
我们只能够通过亲身的教学来传授这种方法和理念。
I don't expect you to believe anything I've said today unless you try it. Because unless you try it, you won't know. Because it's an inner experience and it's the only experience that counts as far as I can see.
我不会强求在座的各位相信我今天所说的一切信息，但是如果大家能够亲身的去体验一下的话，相信大家会相信的。
So this is where you can find the information. If you want to watch, there's loads of videos on here. There's hundreds of hours of videos of evidence from Africa. This is how you can get hold of me. This is an old site for sickle cell. This is source medicine, and where you can, on this source, you can obtain the resonances yourself. They're for free. You make a donation if you wish to, but we don't charge. And that's my email account if you want to talk to me, if you want to copy this presentation, etc., you can just write to me.
大家在屏幕上面看到的是我一切的联系方式和信息。第一个网站是我们这个机构的。
I think I've got at least 5 minutes for questions.
大家在上面看到的是我们这机构的网站。第二个是关于镰状细胞疾病的。第三个大家可以在 YouTube 视频上找到我的一系列视频。第四个是关于非洲的一些案例。第5个是我的邮箱方式，大家可以跟我联系。下面我希望大家能够提一些问题，我会给你们解答。
And then I'll see how to answer.
Yes, there's 2 questions, and the discussion is before our lunch. We have discussion. 2 questions. Just asking you.
I'm not quite understanding
You can
that.
take 2 questions from the panel, and the discussion is before lunch.
Okay, so you don't want to do it now?
2 questions.
2 questions. Okay.